Hi again. We're going to look at another problem solving activity, this time again using a creative process, which can actually help you quite a lot when you come up against technical difficulties or major areas of doubt in your project work, especially the kind of problem that you can't solve simply, that doesn't have a single elegant solution, the kind of wicked problems that you need to generate lots and lots of different solutions for. We're going to look at could seem like a fairly simple problem, and it's the problem of my neighbours here in the institute next to my house that have a serious problem with car parking. This is on a good day. On a bad day, there are even more cars jammed into this car park to the point where you can't actually close the gates, and heaven forbid there were some kind of emergency where they'd all have to leave at the same time, they really wouldn't have any chance whatsoever. We could say here that in this situation there just aren't enough car parking spaces. We're going to use a process. We saw in the last video that creativity really is learnable when we think of it as a process. We're going to use a process called realities, creativity, and then solutions. So we're going to use 3 stages in our creative process here. It's a little bit simpler than the first of the processes that we looked at. We could say here, formulating a reality. The first step, realities. There aren't enough parking spaces, and if we think that really there aren't enough parking spaces, as we see here, the logical, immediate thinking, problem solving, logical solution to this would be simply to build more. We need to build more parking spaces, but this could actually be the most expensive of the solutions that we have, and it could mean digging holes and constructing new platforms on which to put these parking spaces. So it might not be the best solution. It could be the immediate solution, the logical solution to the problem. There aren't enough parking spaces would be, let's build some more. What we're going to use is the generation of more realities, and we're going to do that asking ourselves, or is the problem that there aren't enough car parking spaces, or could it be that there are different ways that we have to see this problem, and we could reformulate the problem by saying, well, are there too many cars? Are there too many teachers in this institute? Are there too many students? It doesn't really matter at this stage in the creative thinking process whether our problems are real or not. What we're trying to do is to generate different perspectives from which we can view this problem. The investigator, researcher, and writer in creativity, Vlad Glavanov, talks about polyocularity, which is kind of a pretty flash way of saying just basically looking at the problem from different perspectives. And the best way to do that is to ask yourself, as the or is it, or are there too many teachers, or are there too many cars, or do all of the cars arrive at the same time, or all of the classes at the same time? So what we're doing here is we're looking at the problem in different ways. What I want you to do is pause the video, go down to the Padlet underneath this video in the course, and try and add as many different realities, ways of seeing the realities. Now, what I want you to be careful of here is not to hide solutions in your realities. that's kind of difficult to explain, but as I see your solutions arriving in the Padlet, well, some of them maybe I'll eradicate them because I think that they are actually hidden solutions. Let's say you choose as a reality, or aren't enough people arriving by bicycle. You're hiding the solution there of people should be using the bicycle instead of talking about the reality, which is everybody comes by car. Okay? Don't confuse solutions with realities. Pause the video, go down to the Padlet and fill that column of realities. Take a pause. Okay, we're back again. Now that we've got a long list, probably, unless you're the first person to attack this problem, as people attack these lists, and make sure you write your name as well on your suggestions, we should be developing a long list of ways of viewing the reality, and this is sometimes much easier to do online than it is to do offline. We're going to see how that works. These new perspectives that we have of the problem will help us now to generate creative obligations, if you like, kind of a compromise, if you like, an obligation with the problem solving, and we say we must. So to the problem, there are too many cars or too many teachers, we must reduce the number of cars, we must reduce the number of teachers. Now, we may think that these sound like solutions, but they're not actually. They're not a solution until we say how we're going to do it. So we must reduce the number of cars. Fine. How are we going to do that? Whenever we hear a politician saying we should, we must, we need to, using these modal verbs of obligation, we really should ask them, okay, how are you going to do that? It makes a big difference. So pause the video again. This time go back down into the Padlet and convert your realities into what we could call obligations. Okay, so convert your realities into obligations. We must, we should, we need to. That's the second step of this creative process. Call this a creative problem solving process. I'm going to pause. You pause too. Pause. And then finally what we have is the S. The S for solutions. What I want us to do is to find two solutions for each of the C's, for each of the creative obligations in the second list, Okay, so basically now what we have is a platform, if you like, for the brainstorming part of the creative process. What we've done here is we have paused, we've opened up again this parenthesis in between the situation that we find and the final solutions, and in that area we examine, we explore, we generate different ways of thinking about the problem, different ways of looking at the problem in order to generate new solutions. Creative thinking is about thinking of many different solutions for our problems, and that's the second activity that I want us to do, the second creative thinking process that I'd like you to look at this weekend. Now we have another session on a live session on Tuesday, I believe it is, and in that session we're going to be looking at different ways of training ourselves for creative thinking. We're also going to be looking at the whole question of critical thinking, and there are people who separate the two, and I really don't think you can separate one from the other. I once heard somebody use the expression careful thinking, and I really think that creative thinking, critical thinking are all part of careful thinking. They're all part of better thinking better, taking our time, not jumping into solutions, not defending wrong solutions. So we're going to be looking at that in the live session, but this should give you quite plenty to work on for the next couple of days. What I would like you to do also is think about a problem that you could, problem related to your research, that you could attack with either of these processes that we've looked at in these first two videos for this module. Okay, see you soon.